Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you episode 142 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Now, I'd like you guys to try and stay with me today, because I'm going to go from point A, which is a logical starting point, to something that may not be logical when we get to point B, because my mind just goes in odd directions to come to some unusual thoughts. And when I actually start today, we're going to talk a little bit about Zyuohger, but when we actually get to the end, it's just kind of, I want to highlight my train of thought of how I got from looking at the Zyuohger mode changes to what we're going to talk about in our main topic today. So just try to follow along, give me a little leeway. I promise it'll make sense when we get towards the end here. All right, so since the last podcast, we've had a lot of information come out about Zyuohger. We have new images of them. We have new Zord images that are coming out. We have a plot. We have characters. We have a 15-second television preview. All that stuff is coming out. And honestly, I don't have too much more to go ahead and say about that I already had. I do like the direction that's going. The suits look a lot better where they're in 3 dimensions and actually moving. The plot seems rather interesting. The characters, they look fine for the roles they have. And I do like the idea that the writer from Gokaiger is actually coming back to do this entire series, so that's definitely a positive. But one of the more interesting things that I saw is what they're doing with mode changes. So one of my criticisms in the previous video in podcast 140, I believe, was that I did not like the way that the Red Ranger's helmet was significantly different from the others, in the fact that he has that gold and yellow beak on his helmet and doesn't really kind of match up the single color and black color that the other Ranger suits did have. But now I see that that is there for a purpose. As you see in this image, our Red Ranger can go from his eagle form and move his mouthpiece, the beak, from the bottom of his helmet to the top of his helmet, revealing a new helmet design and thus becoming Zhuo Gorilla. He has 2 forms, Eagle and Gorilla. And I think this is a great idea here. Going from one to the other, it's like super mode, I guess. And I don't know how they're going to pull it off in the series exactly, how they're going to go ahead and explain it, but I think aesthetically it does look good, it does look cool. Now, the next thing I thought about from this is, are they going to do this with the other 4 Rangers? If I had to go ahead and take a guess, I would say yes. I don't think this is something that would be limited to the Red Ranger himself. I think this is something that would be an entire team thing, because if it was just for the Red Ranger, I think it would be just a Battleizer, or the Japanese equivalent, but I do think this is going to be a quote-unquote super mode for the entire team. Most likely the 6th Ranger, 7th Ranger, however many Rangers we end up having, are all going to go ahead and have this ability to move the visor up on their helmet, from the bottom to the top position and change into a different animal. And it's most obvious when you actually look at the Blue Ranger's helmet. You can see that because those white marks at the bottom, that they are going to go ahead and have her transform into something else. Now, here's the more interesting thing. Look at the image that we have here of the Red Ranger in his Eagle and Gorilla forms. What is the significant difference that you see between his 2 forms? Yeah, look at the Eagle version. He's sleek and slender. He looks like a Japanese person in a spandex costume, very thin. I'm not going to go ahead and say wiry or bony or anything like that. He just looks very thin, very sleek, like most Rangers have been throughout the series. But when we look at his gorilla form, notice that he is essentially hulked out, if you will. His biceps are much bigger, his chest is much bigger, he's in a more provocative form. Now, this could be as a result of the artwork, because I don't think that's an actual person posing in a costume right there, and you notice that his legs do seem a little bit smaller than his torso. So it could be a result of the artwork, but I'm willing to bet that when he changes into his gorilla form, that he does gain muscles, that his biceps and his chest grow, in addition to his helmet change and the design on his chest. And here's where I go into the next line of thought. Is this going to be something that is unique to the Red Ranger because he turns into the gorilla, or is this going to be something shared amongst the other Rangers? For example, look at our Green Ranger. Let's say he moves his visor up from the down position to the up position and becomes a rhino. I don't know if that's the actual animal or not. I'm just throwing an animal out there for this little line of thought. If he becomes elephant to rhino and he becomes more powerful, does he gain more muscle? Does he hulk out? Does he bulk up to become this more powerful form? Because what it seems like to me, just based on this one image, is it's going to be much like the lightning mode for the Storm Megazord from Ninja Storm Hurricaneger, that it's going to have the bulky, powerful mode, but then the sleek, slender, more agile mode. And in this case, the agile mode is going to be the default, and the bulky is going to be the alternate form. Probably not unlike what they did with Magi Green and Magi Ranger, where he had the Magi muscles, I think they were called, where he has this huge muscular form that does make him more powerful. Is that something we're going to go ahead and get for all the Rangers here? Because, again, I assume they're going to have all the animal changes for the others, but is the muscular growth only for the Red Ranger, or is it going to be something that's shared amongst all the Rangers? And then, let's talk about the girls here, because this is kind of an odd thing to think about when you actually sit and think about it. Are they going to give the girls bigger musculature, or are they just going to keep them their thin, dainty selves? Because if you actually seen the images of the girls that we actually have for this series, they're your typical 20-something Japanese girls, very thin, very, very girly. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's kind of what we have right here. And where this kind of leads me is Sentai going to have it where these girls gain musculature and become more muscled in the series? Now, the reason I ask that question is because think back to the history of both Sentai and Power Rangers, the almost 2,000 episodes of Sentai and 800 plus episodes of Power Rangers. How often in the Power Rangers series and Super Sentai do we see girls become stronger physically? And I don't mean like Kagura's I'm a strong girl, and she can punch things out, but I'm talking about like build muscle, become more muscular throughout the series. And with that, how often do we actually see girls in any of these series lifting weights? I actually asked this question on Rangerboard. I go, in the entire history of Power Rangers, how many examples can you point to me of where the girls are pumping iron in the series? And it turns out I only got a response from 2 episodes. That's 800 plus Power Ranger episodes and only 2 examples of this. And I don't even really count them, but I'm going to bring them up here just to highlight my point. Aisha's doing like a workout machine in the Hate Monster Part 1. It's just a workout machine, so it doesn't really fit what I'm looking for. And Gia's doing pull-ups in, I believe, the episode where Robo Knight's asking about tears and love and whatnot. But when was the last time you actually saw a Power Ranger, whether it was Kimberly or Trini or Catherine or Maya, or any of these female Rangers work out by lifting weights? Sure, we've seen them practice gymnastics and martial arts, and Jen punched out a tree and stuff like that. And we've seen minor examples in Sentai where they've gone to the gym and girls have been at exercise equipments and stuff. But I'm not seeing them doing bicep curls, lifting barbells, or doing deadlifts, or doing squats, or anything like that. And that's where I'm leading into the meat of this discussion. And thus, I'm going to change the images up on the screen. I hope you enjoy it, because what I really want to go ahead and talk about is the lack of muscular females within the Power Ranger and Sentai universes. Because when I actually sat down and thought about it, there's not really anybody in Sentai or Power Rangers with the physique of Melissa Sarawi or Yeon Woo Jhi. If you don't know who they are, their images are flashing up on the screen, so please enjoy those for the rest of this video. Because these are 2 women who I admire. They are athletes, they are professional female bodybuilders, which is something you really don't hear about a lot in the media. Yeah, ESPN3 may cover it, once in a while and stuff, but I do feel that there is a lack of muscular females within media in general, but specifically here in Power Rangers and in Super Sentai. I mean, again, think about all the female Power Rangers. Let's just limit to Power Rangers for the moment here. Think of all the female characters we've had in Power Rangers. How many of them have been more masculine? would you say, that would have these muscles? I mean, sure, you got Kelsey, but I would say that she's more fit because of the things that she does, but she never goes around, lifting weights, doing dead squats or anything. We just see her running and rollerblading. We see her in the first episode, rock climbing and all that. We saw the girls in Mighty Morphin. Kimberly was doing gymnastics. Trini was into martial arts. She's doing kung fu later in the series. But you never really see these girls expose their bodies, and not in the way that you're thinking. Think back to Mighty Morphin here. How many times did we see Jason and Tommy with their shirts off, showing their six packs and their pecs and everything? How often did we see, Rocky and Adam wear the tank tops, showing off the muscles that they have? I mean, heck, even Billy at a point, you see his muscles once he wears tighter clothing later on, once we get to, say, the third season, the movie, and even in Zeo. We are seeing in our male characters this masculinity. But when we take a look at our female characters, we're still seeing femininity. We're still seeing these sleek, thin female characters. Yes, they are athletes, but they are not muscular. And I question that in the context of the series because, and here's where I'm kind of leading with this, is Power Rangers and Sentai to the extent not comfortable showing masculine females in their series. Sure, we have it where the females are in some cases better than our regular male characters. Again, Jen is a good example, but that's because she has a strong presence, command, and just the way she acts because she is the leader of the Time Force Rangers. And yes, she does work out and stuff, but we don't see her show her physical side within the show at all. We don't see any of these other female characters. And really, when we see them not in their ranger suits and they are fighting, it's not in the same type of brute force way that our male characters do. I mean, again, let's go back to Mighty Morphin here. How many times do we see Rangers lifting weights in that show? I mean, they had an entire episode called Pressing Engagement where Jason was trying to break the bench press record. Who, by the way, in case you didn't know, you know who did hold that record before Jason? Bulk. It's kind of an oddity when your show is saying that Jason and Bulk are on the same level physically, as far as masculine strength, than Trini and Kimberly. Why wasn't that episode about, Trini trying to set the bench press record? Not for women, but for everybody. Or Kimberly trying to set that record. Why is Kimberly into gymnastics? Why is Kimberly not into female bodybuilding? Because that's another oddity of both shows, is that they always show the women doing things that are standard. Again, martial arts, gymnastics. We see them, again, on a couple of weight machines. We see Gia doing pull-ups. We see them running. We see them hiking. We see them rollerblading. But never once do we actually see them go to, say, Muscle Beach in Venice and start, pumping iron. Why is that? What is it about Power Rangers that they don't feel the need to show these women doing that type of activity? Because you would think in 20 years you'd have one female character who was into athletics or something to, become stronger and all that. I mean, here's what's odd. Let's go to Sentai for a second and let's look at Akko from Jetman. So in the very first episode, Akko is hit with the Birdonic waves, and she is transformed from her, standard meek form, but is given additional super strength and stamina and so forth from the Birdonic waves. Now, what does she actually do with this in the episode? Well, in the second episode, we see her at school, and she goes out for the track and field team, and she's able to jump high and pole vault and all that great stuff. But as we've seen with other characters, particularly Guy, they do possess additional super strength. He was able to crush that saxophone in his hands. And of course, as we see with Raita, he's able to lift large boulders, which I don't believe is a power directly to him. I believe it's for everybody, given the Birdonic waves are equal amongst all of them. So how come we didn't see a physical change in Akko, that she, actually had muscles? Because you just can't be super strong like that without growing muscles. I mean, I know what they're trying to tell us in I forget the name of the episode from Turbo when Justin got bit by an ant and he was given super strength. But, physiologically speaking, you have to have some sort of change. How come there wasn't any change in Akko's body or Raita's or anybody's with these new birdonic waves and their new strength? And why is it that they're showing off her jumping ability, but is showing off Guy's strength when he crushes the saxophone? Kind of seems like it would be the other way around, that we're taking this character who is your typical Japanese high school girl who's meek and mild from perception, and that's a stereotype, yes, but show her doing things where you don't kind of expect that. Okay, one of the things I did in college is gave this writing sample of basically this guy in the gym who's trying to lift 300 pounds, trying to deadlift 300 pounds, but he's a big, strong black guy, can't do it, and that's the image you have. You get these big, strong black guys trying to lift it up and doing 300 sets or whatever and all that kind of stuff, because that's the perception that people have. Then I wrote into the story that this little dainty little blonde girl comes in and she's able to lift the whole thing without any effort, like she's lifting styrofoam. And the whole point of that little exercise that I did was to usurp expectations, that you would expect this big guy to go ahead and start lifting these weights, like the football players at Alabama and stuff like that. You expect to see things like that. But you don't expect to see dainty little girl just picking up these weights and doing stuff like that. And I equate that to what's going on with Akko. You don't expect her to do stuff like that, but with this new super strength, she should be able to do that, don't you think? And even more interesting, when we see him in the gym later in Jetman, we see Ryu and Guy lifting weights, and I think Raita does it once, but I don't think for a single moment do we see any of the girls lifting weights other than the Neo Jetman picking one up and just tossing it at them, which is a good step forward, but that's more or less what we should have been seeing with Akko and Kurai in the series. Or Kuroi. I can't remember her name. Please forgive me for forgetting White Swan's name at the moment. Anyway, so let me kind of get a little bit on track here. Again, as you've been seeing here, just for the heck of it, you've been seeing pictures of Miss Wee and Miss G throughout this video. My question is, why aren't there more female characters like that in our series? Why are we getting these dainty little girls to play these powerful characters instead of getting a powerful woman to play a powerful character? Because I guess you could say that because you don't expect it. You get this girl who's 17 years old, very meek, very shy. She's given these powers, and boy, look what she can do. Look at her potential, which is kind of what they were doing at Kagura, is that you get this little girl, and then you have her imagine her strength, and suddenly she does become stronger. But what if Kagura, and then let's eliminate the imagination thing just for the sake of argument here. What if she was fighting against the Shadow Line, and she realized that the others are stronger than her, that they have more muscles because they're men or something like that. And she decides, I'm going to start lifting weights. I am going to be a strong girl. I'm literally going to do it. And you see that change over the series, that she goes from being weak and not powerful to having a goal set to where she becomes powerful over the progression of the series, that she actually works towards her strength. And that would be an interesting arc for a series, to take a female character, or any character. You could do male, but I'm specifically highlighting female because you don't see that in shows. You don't see that in movies. You always see, again, you see Rocky, and look at, okay, here's a good example here. You look at Rocky, look at Stallone. They did this is the seventh movie with Creed, and they were Apollo Creed's grandson. What if it was Apollo Creed's granddaughter? How much more interesting would that film be? I heard it's a great film. I don't plan on seeing it because I was never into the Rocky films. But how much more interesting would that film be if it's a female character? Heck, look at the Hulk movies. Wouldn't it be more interesting if it was the She-Hulk instead of Hulk? People tell me all the time that, they're never going to make a She-Hulk movie, or She-Hulk's never going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because she's a masculine female, which kind of ties into what I'm talking about here. And I have to ask this question. Is there some reason that the Power Ranger and Sentai groups don't put these types of females in there? That they don't get a person like Melissa Sarawi into their series to be this character. Now, again, you can argue that there are not enough female bodybuilders out there who are good actors, and I will grant you that. But when has that stopped anybody from actually casting people? If anybody recalls, when they did Hercules in New York, they cast an unknown Austrian actor who didn't speak English very well, and they even had to dub over his voice. Oh, and by the way, that was a man named Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes, I mean they've been able to cast people who can't act in the past in a lot of other movies and television shows. So again, why can't you kind of do that here? And plus, if you say any of these people from Power Rangers in recent years are good actors, uh, it is painful. And again, I will agree with Linkara on this. Troy does seem more robotic than Robo Knight. So okay. So again, where am I ultimately going with this? I've given you guys a lot of different examples out here, but here's my overall thoughts and I guess my thesis on the matter. We have never seen in either Super Sentai or Power Rangers a female character who is physically stronger than our male counterparts that are muscular in any type of way other than feminine muscularity. We never see our female characters do anything other than gymnastics, martial arts, and again, in Jin's case, punching a tree. We don't see them actually engage in muscle building exercises. And yes, the two examples I brought up, Aisha and Gia, I don't particularly count those because that's not really leading into what I'm trying to go ahead and talk about here. Why can't we have a female character who is physically strong before she becomes a ranger or progresses like that throughout the series? Why don't we have scenes where the rangers are working out and the girls are actually, trying to deadlift and bench press and do squats and stuff like that? Because doing martial arts is fine, but I will contest that there are several instances within Power Ranger and Sentai history that we do need physical strength. We need to be stronger than the others. And Kagura, again, is a good example because she imagines she's a strong girl, but again, we don't want to show that. How is it that in the entire franchise, the green Mystic Force Ranger was the one that got the muscles? That when Kagura becomes super strong, her body doesn't physically change. She just kind of gets like a superhero outfit. That when Akko is hit with the Birdonic waves, that her physical strength is implied, but we don't actually see it manifest. Why is it that we don't get those? I do think that a lot of people saying that there is this stigma against women because it's not feminine, but you can still be feminine and be strong. Again, I've been showing you examples throughout these videos of these women who are very feminine and very strong. You can have your cake and eat it too. And I'm not bringing this argument up for any type of sensationalism or fetishism or anything like that. I personally do find muscular women to be very attractive. That's the honest truth right there. And I wonder why we don't have that in the show. And also, we know for a fact that tons and tons of kids started doing martial arts after Power Rangers because they got into it. I don't have the numbers. I don't know if anybody even took numbers of that, but I would be very interested to see the spike in attendance for martial arts programs from early 1993 to late 1993 into 1994, 1995. This could be a good opportunity to give somebody a hobby in there because we see the Rangers do martial arts and there are a lot of kids that emulate that went into martial arts doing that. Maybe, Dana, who is a nurse, a lot of kids went into that saying, oh, I like Dana, I want to be a nurse like her, because they say kids emulate stuff. So why not have a female who lifts weights? Or are they afraid that parents or men or whoever are not going to like that their daughters are emulating bodybuilders? I'm just not fully understanding what the stigma is and why is it that in a show where it has superheroes that we're not showing more masculine female characters and female characters showing their strength and showing them working out. I mean, when was the last time we saw any female ranger with six-pack abs? Think about it. Seriously. Even when we see them working out, they always cover their stomachs. But when the men work out, we see them shirtless. Does anybody find that odd? And I do believe, too, that Power Rangers has a weird thing about showing women in bikinis. Like, if you actually look at when the Mighty Morphin teens did go swimming, they were always in one pieces, which is really kind of odd, too. Nevertheless, I think my overall point here is we are stuck in the mindset in both Sentai and Power Rangers that is the men who are masculine to the men who get the muscles. And this is a greater cultural thing, too, that we don't even think about the women in this role. So to tie it back into where we have Zyuohger, are we going to have it that our three male leads are going to have more muscular, powerful forms, but the females are not? Is that what we're going to go ahead and see in the series? Because given history, that might be likely. True, they may just limit it to the Red Ranger with these muscles because of his gorilla, and the other four, it doesn't factor in. But mark my words, if they show the three male Rangers transforming and gaining, more muscles, then I would believe that they will not show the females doing that, and that will not be something that's even touched on in the series. Because again, Magi Green got muscles, but Magi Pink, Magi Blue did not because, well, they're girls. And you can tie this back into the other stuff too. Girls don't get bowelizers. Heck, in Ninja we have two female characters and neither of them have the bowelizer form, unless you count that little thing with Fuka earlier, but that's kind of a one-off joke or something. Even Ninja, the four males get the cool bowelizer, but the girls don't use the bowelizer at all, and that's up to the current episode as far as I know that is. Okay, so I think I've rambled on enough, and I think I've made my point very clear on both Sentai and Power Rangers, and I'm very curious to know what you guys think. I've laid out all my thoughts. It is a cultural thing, that we have these stereotypes that we see, that it's just something that they don't do, that there's not female bodybuilders. I mean, what are your all's thoughts on this subject? What do you think? And do you want to see muscular women in Super Sentai and Power Rangers? Does it make sense? Do they need to be physical for us to, take them seriously, or should they be physically strong? I mean, there are a number of questions you can ask here, and I'm very curious to see the comments in this video and what you guys think about it. So, I want to thank you all for listening to my rambles today. I hope you understand how I got from point A to point B and how it all ties in. But until next time, thank you for listening, have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.